This is Tom and Paula Graves from Light of Christ Radio with a story about the refining journey of Joseph.
You are welcome to watch this video simply for the story, or you can use this as the basis for a small group study.
Instructions for the small group study can be found below in the Show More section.
Today we continue our series called Joseph's Refining Journey, based on the story of Joseph. Today's story is from Genesis 41 and is about how Joseph was raised into leadership.
Well, Paula, to set the context of our story today, God has been taking Joseph on a long journey to refine his faith.
Right. First, Joseph had been sold into slavery by his jealous brothers. And then, as a slave, Joseph was falsely accused of rape and then imprisoned.
And while Joseph's in prison, with God's help, he correctly interpreted the dreams of two of Pharaoh's servants.
And one of these servants, the cupbearer, was restored to his position, and Joseph requested that this cupbearer bring his case before Pharaoh. But he completely forgot, which brings us to a story of the Word of God.
2 full years later, Pharaoh dreamed that he was standing on the bank of the Nile River. In his dream, he saw 7 fat, healthy cows come up out of the river and began grazing in the marsh grass. Then he saw 7 more cows come up behind them from the Nile, but these were scrawny and thin. These cows stood beside the fat cows on the riverbank. Then the scrawny, thin cows ate the 7 healthy, fat cows. At this point in the dream, Pharaoh woke up.
But he fell asleep again, and he had a second dream. This time he saw 7 heads of grain, plump and beautiful, growing on a single stalk. Then 7 more heads of grain appeared, but these were shriveled and withered by the east wind. And these thin heads swallowed up the 7 plump, well-formed heads. Then Pharaoh woke up again and realized it was a dream.
The next morning, Pharaoh was very disturbed by the dreams, so he called for all the magicians and wise men of Egypt. When Pharaoh told them his dreams, not one of them could tell him what they meant.
Finally, the king's chief cupbearer spoke up. "Today I've been reminded of my failure," he told Pharaoh. "Some time ago, you were angry with the chief baker and me, and you imprisoned us in the palace of the captain of the guard. One night, the chief baker and I each had a dream, and each dream had its own meaning. There was a young Hebrew man with us in prison who was a slave of the captain of the guard. We told him our dreams, and he told us what each of our dreams meant. And everything happened just as he had predicted. I was restored to my position as cupbearer, and the chief baker was executed."
Pharaoh sent for Joseph at once, and he was quickly brought from the prison. After he shaved and changed his clothes, he went in and stood before Pharaoh. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I had a dream last night, and no one here can tell what it means. But I have heard that when you hear about a dream, you can interpret it."
"It is beyond my power to do this," Joseph replied, "but God can tell you what it means and set you at ease."
So Pharaoh told Joseph his dreams. Joseph responded,
"Both of Pharaoh's dreams mean the same thing. God is telling Pharaoh in advance what he's about to do. The 7 healthy cows and the 7 healthy heads of grain both represent 7 years of prosperity. The 7 thin, scrawny cows that came up later and the 7 thin heads of grain withered by the east wind represent 7 years of famine."
"This will happen just as I have described it. For God has revealed to Pharaoh in advance what he's about to do. The next 7 years will be a period of great prosperity throughout the land of Egypt, but afterward there'll be 7 years of famine so great that all the prosperity will be forgotten in Egypt. Famine will destroy the land. This famine will be so severe that even the memory of the good years will be erased. As for having 2 similar dreams, it means that these events have been decreed by God, and he will soon make them happen."
Therefore, Pharaoh should find an intelligent and wise man and put him in charge of the entire land of Egypt. Then Pharaoh should appoint supervisors over the land and let them collect 1/5 of all the crops during the 7 good years. Have them gather all the food produced in the good years that are just ahead and bring it to Pharaoh's storehouses, store it away, and guard it so that there will be food in the cities. That way there will be enough to eat when the 7 years of famine come to the land of Egypt. Otherwise, this famine will destroy the land.
Joseph's suggestions were well received by Pharaoh and his officials. So Pharaoh asked his officials, "Can we find anyone else like this man so obviously filled with the Spirit of God?"
And then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Since God has revealed the meaning of the dreams to you clearly, no one else is as intelligent or wise as you are. You will be in charge of my court, and all my people will take orders from you. Only I, sitting on my throne, will have a higher rank than yours."
Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I hereby put you in charge of the entire land of Egypt." Then Pharaoh removed his signet ring from his hand and placed it on Joseph's finger. He dressed him in a fine linen clothing and hung a gold chain around his neck. Then he had Joseph ride in the chariot reserved for his second in command. And wherever Joseph went, the command was shouted, "Kneel down!" So Pharaoh put Joseph in charge of all Egypt.
And this is a story from the Word of God.
If you are using this video for a small group application, after watching this video, try retelling the story from what you heard.
Then read the text. Discussion questions are below in the Show More section.
May this story help you on your journey of life.
Be blessed.